All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Open Source Committee meeting again today, Friday, May the 3rd. We're going to have a little bit of a different start here. If there's some desired discussion around it, we might have someone to jump in on this, but we do want to do just a brief introduction of our committee seats. So I will start with myself quickly. I am Tex. I am part of Intersect, members-based organization, and I am the secretary here for the Open Source Committee. We'll also hear from Nick, Sandeep, Ronald, and Adam and Christian. And this is going to be for members only who we're going to ask. I have to do this in the active notes, but we're going to ask you to provide a brief statement of who you are, so basically your name, the organization that you are affiliated to or organizations, if appropriate, and your current role. My role at Intersect here is the open source analyst / program manager here, so I'll add that in for me. But with that, let me go ahead and pass it along to, we'll start with, I guess we'll start with the chair. So we'll start with Nick, we'll follow to Sandeep, and then we can go to Ronald, Adam, and Christian.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick. I am Director of Engineering at, well, Modus Create, but those of you from the Cardano were probably better known as Twig, which is who we were. I had a history with Cardano. I did a lot of the ledger development work initially, some of the consensus stuff. And yeah, I'm currently acting as the chairman of the OSC and of also taken over leading the security working group from Michael. Sandeep?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Sandeep. I'm the vice chair. I'm from G Quadrant. We are mostly involved in testing and testing both the network and Bluetooth. Besides that, we also developed some of the open source tools like Kubernetes library, Bluetooth transaction balancing, plus a few others. And we're heavily involved on Cardano, both in development and support, and here to contribute. Next, Ronald.
My name is Ronald Span. I'm the CEO of D Quadrant. I'm working together with Sandeep and the other developers on the same projects. Next to that, I'm a stake pool operator since the start from Cardano. So been here since begin 2017, I would say. That's it.
Adam and Christian.
You're not
We're having trouble hearing you there, Adam.
Still nothing. I can go in lieu of it.
Sounds like a network issue rather than an audio issue.
Yeah, we can confirm Adam is a robot. But I'm Christian, leading head of the open source office, kind of representing open source Intersect stake, but also helping coordination of all the committee's efforts and things that they want to put initiatives to. And we're doing this exercise just to be more professional with our committee, and that way we get affiliations out so we can keep it shorter in the future. So, Adam, if you're working.
Yeah, Google was trying to pick up the audio from my webcam as opposed to my headset. So, yeah, but like I said, Adam Dean here on behalf of Adam Dean LLC, doing business as the real Adam Dean. My role is that of founder and self, and I also am technically, I guess, the interim CTO of Drip Drops. But aside from that, somebody once upon a time asked me, "Hey, you want to be on the open source committee?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And so here I am.
All right. So I believe it's going to round out all of our seats here, at least as of the moment. Of course, as we've discussed in some previous meetings here, we will kind of review and have a new voting mechanism for the seats come Q2. But that is a topic on the agenda, so we'll say more to come. I did post the agenda there across our various channels. If there's any feedback that you have, of course, please feel free to relay that back to me directly. If there's anything that you feel is important enough to be discussed on the meeting, I do want to remind everyone we do have OSO, Open Source Office, but the email is oso@intersectmbo.org, and you can always send any feedback that you have there. That'll come directly to myself and Christian so that we can make this the place where you want it to be, place where you want to be, rather. As far as what's on the agenda here, just a quick snippet. As far as old business, we are looking for a new lead for the policy working group. As of right now, a nominee or suggestion is Adam Dean. If there's anybody else as part of the committee that is looking to be a part of a working group or wants to take lead on that working group, we can have that discussion. We'll get an update from the security working group from Nick. Project framework working group, I believe we'll get an update from Alex, but potentially some input from Salona. Project incubation, Christian's going to go ahead and give us an update here and talk about the first scheduled meeting for this instance here. We'll do a brief discussion here on working group participants, how we want people to join, and I'm also going to want to talk about defining working group meeting dates and times, try to get those publicly out there here, at least for the open source committee, so that we're all aware of those. And then any updates that we can provide here from our open source ops team. New business here, again, brief discussion as far as the voting process is concerned. I understand Adam's going to have some additional notes. I did get feedback from the MCC as far as something that they have in use. So that is a deliverable I gathered from last week. And we are going to be looking either in an interim nature over the next 2 months or by the start of Q3 to get 2 seats on here. So we'll need to replace Michael Peyton Jones, who left us as of last week, and then also an empty seat position that's been out there since Matthias had left. There's also a discussion to move to a bi-monthly cadence for the open source committee meetings here. We can determine when that might be best to start, or if we want to stick with the weekly, and then any open forum. So we'll jump back to the top. I know that's a pretty loaded agenda here, but let's go ahead and take a look at policy working group. I'll shift that over to Adam. Adam, do you have interest in leading the policy working group, or do we want to look at something different? Oh. We'll give that just a moment.
So brief context to that point is policy working group originally next in line was security policy, but that kind of formed into its own working group. So now the policy working group's still kind of hanging out there. And it's a conversation if we want to keep it, disband it, or have someone chair it to move on to a new initiative. So. Adam, if you are there.
I think he had left the meeting due to technical issues. So let's go ahead and move on to the security working group, and we'll circle back to policy. Nick?
Yeah, I guess a couple of updates. One is just, we're continuing to work on the security policy. It's been through another round of review. I think it's looking in a reasonably nice state. I will suggest that we don't try to review it in this meeting, given the number of other things on the agenda. But if anybody wants to review it, I will send a link in here. The other is that I discussed with the chap at Intersect, who's the sort of the first nominee for the what we're calling the security officer. So basically the person who would take responsibility for administering the security policy. He seems to be roughly happy with how things are. So yeah, next steps will be next week. I'll try to get this to a finalized state. It feels like we're getting somewhere like that. And then I guess we need to bring it to, well, then we need to have a discussion as to who actually ratifies it. I guess that's going to have to be the technical steering committee, which doesn't exist yet. But I guess we can bring it to the OSC at least for ratification by then.
Nick, I know there's a document that y'all have for the security working group. I've suggested a few updates that I can fill out the Git book reference accordingly. I believe Michael may still have ownership of that.
Yeah, I got Michael to I got Michael to grant me edit access today, so I've but I didn't see any comments from you there. There are a number of comments from Kevin. I haven't seen any comments from you.
Take a look real quick.
So I've
I'll
put a
send that
link
to you separately, and
yeah,
we'll go
ping
over that.
me about it, and we'll sort it out.
Okay. Apologize. Let me go ahead and keep this moving. Alex, let's go ahead and get an update here from Project Framework.
All right. So we had a meeting on the 1st of May, Labor Day. We had Terence, myself, Bogdan, and Silona. And the discussion was for the Intersect Project Lifecycle framework developed by Bogdan. So Bogdan presented the table of 5 stages. Each has 3 rows, right? So in each stage, there are particular challenges which characterize the stage, and there are desirable actions that should be taken by projects at this stage, and a sort of best practices to adhere to. So at this meeting, we discussed the first stage, which is incubation, and primarily we talked about the 5 actions which are desirable to ensure the success of the project. And then we had some inputs and sort of still discussions ongoing. So to reduce this number from 5 to 3, and to have just primarily projects which are in incubation stage have to establish their roadmap and vision. So they have to be aware what they are doing and what is their value proposition, what they're bringing, and how long will it take them, what are the steps, and things like that. Then they should be aware of their marketing and outreach strategy. So how they present, how they interact with the, for example, Intersect comms team, how they present their work to the broader community. And then one of the third step is setting up or getting the developer experience right. So that developer experience includes technical tools such as automatic testing, CI/CD, everything that facilitates developer productivity. A second big part of developer experience is clear documentation. So if they don't have processes well documented, it will hinder the development of the project. And the third is most kind of abstract thing is community culture. So just how new people are treated in the team, how outsiders are treated in the team, just things that are pieces of knowledge which are not explicitly stated, which are tribal knowledge and things like that. So Ilona had some inputs, maybe Silona had some inputs, maybe she can comment on this. And then further we discussed, so yeah, maybe I can give Silona voice if she has some comments on what I just said, and then I can continue a little bit.
Oh, I think the main thing is that we're working on those different pieces, honestly, Alex. And so, and I am taking that all into the thing that, I'm trying to create, and we'll just keep doing those feedbacks with each other on it, because I'm taking the stuff that y'all are doing from the project lifecycle, adding it into the larger plan. I hope to be able to share all of that with y'all soon. Because what I went and did is I created actually a flow, not a flow chart, but flow chart pieces. Honestly, to sit there and say, here's the normal processes we should go through these things, just like everyone keeps having these common design things. It's okay, first you have to come up with the idea, then you have to, and then you design it, and then you implement it, and then you da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I've come up with common pieces like that. And so what I'm going to be doing is trying to take that and work it in with the design that y'all have been giving me, and then reflect it back to you and go, does this sound accurate? So in a way, I'm kind of standardizing, for lack of a better word, small s standardizing things between each of the different groups that I'm speaking with, because y'all are all doing very common things. And so, but yeah, no, I think it's evolving, and I think it's doing well. It's just, we do have to understand that I'm trying to sit there and intersect a lot of different points together. And I hope that everybody likes it. And of course, I'm going to take it I'm going to bring it back here to y'all before I make it public, so that y'all can tell me what you think and we can have an iteration off of it. So, yeah.
All right. So then some of the interesting questions which were left unanswered or just hanging, and I put them in the minutes to bring it like to broader to the OSC. So one is Silvana brought up difference between how some processes in Intersect and Cardano parallel some other processes at Hyperledger, in particular about the projects which about the process of incubation, which implies getting funding, and the process of just people who come with their own funding, but they want to build projects for Cardano, and they would like to fit their work into the vision and the like in Cardano. So this process is not the same as incubation, and what's called labs at Hyperledger. So it was discussion between Bogdan and Silvana, but I didn't document a lot of it. Then there was a question about special interest groups and how they fit into this picture, because presumably they will have a say in which projects get incubated, and this brings forth the question of membership in these groups and who gets to be in the seats of these special interest groups.
Can I step
Yeah.
on that one real quick, Alex?
Yeah, sure.
So that came honestly out of the civics. So as I said, many committees doing many things. The civics committee had a thing in London. And one of the things out of it was going through the ideation portion and how do we actually even validate the ideas at the very beginning. And that's where, you know, people mentioned Charles's buckets. I mentioned special interest groups. And so we're like, well, if we want to do a different kind of special interest group that has powers, one of the things that could happen at the very first part of the ideation is when someone files an idea, they tag those special interest groups. And then those special interest groups come in and help with the validation process and sit there and say, yes, this is good, this is not good. But then we have to be careful because special interest groups could be dominated by like a company or a faction that then only supports their own stuff. So we have to be careful as to how we create that. And so that was like one of the discussions that we've had in the civics and the community committee members groups. Sorry.
Karen, I know you were here to watch. Do you have anything between working groups and special interest groups that you can share at this time, or is that something I can bring back to the OSC next week?
It's definitely something I'll probably have more definition next week. We are well aware that different committees and functions within Intersect have things called working groups and special interest groups and interest groups that are all doing slightly different things and defined in slightly different ways, which is causing a little bit of frustration to the community. So we are trying to bring a little bit more cohesion around the definition around those different groups. But I should have a better idea by next week, and I'll share that with you, Tex, so you can bring it back to this group.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. So, and the last question from the last meeting, again, coming back to the special interest groups, and if process is such that projects for incubation projects need to pass through process with working groups or special interest groups, then what happens if a certain project doesn't fit in the scope of any of the groups? If we don't have a group which, if, like this particular project could be adhered to, what could happen is that the project would be denied funding. Like Sam is just struck close to home, because we've been struggling with this in the developer experience working group, and nobody was able to pick it up. You know, like what piece of Intersect do you fit in? And then we had some feedback from IOG experts and some inputs from the community, which suggested that this work is really valuable to making development process more friendly and being more open to newcomers, but we were unable to just fit in any of the existing structures, and this caused quite a bit of frustration for the working group members as well. So that's the last question, and here's all.
All right. Well, thank you. Anybody have anything to add here? Any feedback or questions? And I'll ask that for both the security working group update as well as the project framework working group. No questions. We'll move this along here then. Christian, let's hear about project incubation, please.
Okay, I guess picking up from what Alex and Solana were saying is incubation is kind of its own animal in under the framework. So I've scheduled next Thursday, and you're in on it, Solana, for us to go over and review what that process is going to look like and actually come up with the evaluation criteria and submission forms related to it, all the different parties involved. I drafted high-level things to be hated of ideas to start with, at least draft docs. In just general areas, and then what we want to title that. So that's really the update there. We'll have more context coming next Friday for update if we continue. Adam?
Yeah, that doc is not publicly accessible at the moment.
Let me switch that. I forget my edit. Yeah, let me okay. First one is done, and I'll get the second one. Thank you. But that's it from incubation for now.
Questions or feedback for incubation, project incubation? All right, so we'll move this along to a smaller open forum discussion here regarding working group participants. I know some of the working groups, I wouldn't say that they are too small, but there are only a few contributors here at this point, and want to make sure that these groups are functioning, right? Or I'm sure the groups themselves want to make sure that they're functioning. So I guess we can take this as an opportunity for anybody. You can put it here in the Google chat, or again, you can still forward to our team here if you would like to be a part of a working group and you are not currently, or if you have questions about really what that looks like. You know, which groups you would want to join. Do we need to give a better explanation? Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, you know, probably a big part of our problem is one, where and how are we defining all of the working groups that even this one committee has? Because I think we have like 4 or 5. What are they and what is their goal? And who is actually eligible to join and become a member of those working groups? Is it open to the general Intersect membership? Is it only members of this committee? That's kind of a lot of what these questions that we've been having come up over and over again. All of our documentation is all over the place. And so we can't be surprised that we're having a lack of participation because we don't have a very clear communication channel.
So I'll start by answering with the Intersect Git book is going to be the #1 place to go as far as what is the working group, what do they do, what are their goals. So that's the know-how, if you will, right, about what the group is doing. But I will divert to Christian here for his response.
Yeah, so at least for the open source committee, we're keeping it on track with our Gitbook page. And if there is a new working group that you want to start from the committee, someone from the committee needs to chair it, at least so we have someone responsible to make sure deliverables are going. And then you need to draft the purpose and all those goals, and there's some templates up on that Gitbook for it. But if there is outside community working groups, that's where we need to partner with Karen, Solana, whatever the path is for integration of those. I heard rumor that apparently the Oracle's working group was mapped to us somehow, but I never got word of it, so we removed that. But yeah, I think we also need to evaluate our ways of working, because right now it's very much closed to this call, and maybe it's where we throw in a Discord channel or use Matrix for coordination of efforts as well.
I have to say, I've been having problems with Matrix. I know that people have been individually messaging me on it, and I go over to them and the messages are gone. And I send them the blank screens, but yeah, I would want to sit there and go over why we're having some weirdnesses in Matrix. It might have to do with how it's set up.
Happy to resolve those. I know that's the same Miller thing too, which I think it was the network working group with Marchin. They had issues where they'd get notifications of unread messages, and then when they hit the threads, it wouldn't pop up. And I've had to reload Matrix 3 times, and third time's always a charm for me. So I
end up reloading it every single time I use it. because it doesn't actually keep things going correctly. So yeah, so I think there's something that's not right there, but I'm not sure what it is because Matrix is not one of the ones I've supported. So I can't tell you. Otherwise,
Alex, did you have something to add, or was it the same issue as Delona?
Yeah, it was the same issue.
Okay.
I know it was a community voted tool to use, so we can also look at alternatives to move to if we decide we want to go that way as well. So I'm indifferent on the platform, honestly. So.
Right. So unless there's any other feedback on this particular topic, again, this is work group participants, or rather work group participation. What I will put down as a deliverable on my side is I will make sure to come back with who all can be a participant in a working group. So we'll define that to specifically say if it can be anybody who wants to identify as part of the open source committee that's not in a seat. So I'll take a look at defining that, and then I was going to say as well, apologize. I'll get a hand. Go, Christian, go ahead.
I was going to say, mostly working groups should be open for people to join and just have a pathway into it. I think the only ones you need to be careful of is the nature of a working group. So security might be a little closed as to who's in it, just given the stakeholders involved in it. But yeah.
Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to say, touching on the question that I know we were trying to get to when my computer decided to freeze and die on me, that it sounds like this is a good cause to at least temporarily continue the policy working group and make sure that working group helps to define how future working groups, so that we have a policy on working groups. So we need the policy working group to define the policy for working groups so that we can make working groups work. And that's, as clear as I can possibly make it.
No, that's definitely understood. I don't believe it was clear earlier. Are you okay to take the lead on the policy working group? Perfect. So we'll put you in that position here then. And did you have any other updates, since I know we missed you at the beginning there?
No, yeah, other updates, with the election processes and things like that, as the work that Karen's doing to coordinate between the work that we've been doing and the MCC's been doing and the civics committee's been doing and Alex and DevX has been doing. So we have a new working group to collaborate those efforts to get clear definition so that we can all then start to move forward from there. Really, I think we're not in critical need of holding an election right now to replace MPJ as it stands, only because we don't currently have a good way to only allow members of Intersect to participate and to guarantee a high amount of voter turnout. So I think we're okay with waiting and kind of pushing that towards our August overall committee re-election period, unless we see more people that are dropping out to where the committee is getting down to a no longer capable of functioning level. And then I think we would, be in extraordinary circumstances. But in terms of the voting tools and implementation that Intersect as an organization is going to implement, we're going to have to wait for corporate to make a decision there before we as members can host a regular or a special election. But go ahead, Christian.
I was going to say, I think that works. We just need to, as you were saying, either define what that Q3 renewal is, or even go to the community and at least get an agreement to extend the interim committee as a solution until things continue, or even evaluate if we just do half the committee reelected or stagger it some way.
All right, so just a brief recap there. We did end up inserting the policy working group update there in the middle. Any feedback on, actually, let me give the last piece here. If I can request for the leads to either send me or update their notes file to include the general or standardized meeting date and time. Just let me know what that is, or make sure that that's listed wherever your documents are shared publicly here. That way we can make sure that the working groups, as appropriate, maybe not the security one, right? We're keeping that one closed a little bit. But any of the other working groups that may be public, let's see if we can't list those meeting days and times accordingly here, so that when we do have a new participant, or rather continue to lead that out, that they're able to know when, or rather if they're able to make that particular meeting. Any feedback on participants, policy working group, anything of that nature? Okay. I'll pick this up and move along with the conversation that also got started there, which was the voting procedures here. So it seems as if we're going to hold off unless another fire would ignite here until Q3. So that'll give us a little bit of time to work out what the definitions are going to be, or rather, I imagine we may hear that back from the policy working group here. I did get a process back from the MCC, but my understanding is that that's already been seen by those in the policy working group. So what I will do is I will coordinate or pop into one of those meetings here, just to make sure I have an understanding on where that's going. And we can pick this up here in a future meeting, since we're putting that off till Q3. Questions? Okay. Next item on the list here is the bi-monthly cadence proposal. Would everyone be, would everyone accept that we move these meetings to be bi-monthly, so once every other week? Do we want to keep these as weekly meetings? What would be a positive or a negative of that for either your working group or anything of that nature? Christian?
I was going to say this is my agenda item for everyone, just because we hustled since almost August of last year just to get everything across. And we got a strategy we're working against now. And I think we got 4 or 5 working groups. So this will give them time to actually have more development updates every Friday. And that way it's, because I think we're kind of copying and pasting here and there. So my vote's to move to a bi-monthly, but I'll leave that for general consensus.
Alex?
Bi-monthly or bi-weekly?
Bi-monthly.
So twice a month.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You're welcome to join bi-weekly. You just might be the only
It's
one.
the same. Twice a month is like once every 2 weeks. Bi-weekly means twice a week or every other week.
It's one of these very unclear expressions in English that can, depending on how you interpret it, mean either. So.
All right. So
Yeah.
once every 2 weeks.
Twice a month. Yeah.
Every other Friday. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
Cool.
looks like we got thumbs up all the way around. So I think we're good there.
Okay. We are on to the open forum piece.
We did miss the open source office updates.
Oh, we did. Look at that.
So I briefly wanted to just talk about that. And I will have our ClickUp space updated to reflect, but just kind of bringing it back to the strategy that we were all so fond of. Okay, for some reason this is not working for me. Here we go. So essentially these were our target areas. Obviously we got working groups associated with the security side, so we're hitting that dead on. The increased sustainability, risk mitigation that comes through the life cycle framework. We have a working group hitting on that. I wanted to clarify where we are with these two. So currently right now with the diversity and the maintainership, we have 3 docs on maintainers, definition that George prepared in accordance with a lot of Salona's resources. We're going to take that and tailor it down specifically to the Intersect use case, and highlight exactly in adherence with the governance policy what's already been written, and or update the governance policy depending on what comes out of that. But I will work with Salona closely on that and make sure we have that definition. Therefore, we have some contract language that comes associated with that for the suppliers, since we want to do paid maintainership on at least some of the core repositories where there's at least 2 people per each. So that's where that is. And I have a session with Salona to go over that. And that also comes with us getting a contributor license agreement of some form or fashion ironed out next week. And then in line with the governance policy, texted an audit to see what documentation is missing related to all the repos that we currently have. And we're also working with the working group function that is going to come out related to core components on Cardano, i.e. potentially having, similar to what Marchin's already doing with the network working group, have one for consensus node. They're the suppliers working out how they want to bring out those working groups, and then tailor in the other part of the governance policy about having the repo side of those meetings being public. So that's in progress, and I should have a timeline sometime towards the end of next week as well, showing progress on this, and we'll put it all in ClickUp. But I just wanted to briefly highlight that so everyone's not like, we just wrote the strategy, now what? So that's that. Any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to briefly touch on the maintainers kind of arc or goal that we have. And that does seem to be one of the bigger questions. I know Solana has a really good kind of like philosophical definition of what a maintainer is. And that was kind of blended in with George and Bogdan's definition of what a maintainer is. But that does, at the end of the day, also need to be a functional technical role that has certain rights and responsibilities in the repos. So we had kind of touched on it in my kind of governance policy document that I started writing and sharing. I know Nicholas, like we were going a little bit of kind of back and forth trying to define what is a maintainer when we're talking about a repo. So that's definitely something I'd like to see more clarity on, because right now it seems like we're just going like somebody that's passionate about the project and has been involved in it. But like, what do they do? What are their do's and don'ts? And, you know, how do you become and or get revoked from being a maintainer? I think is going to be really important to define. So I think that new combined working group, but I think that's one that we have to define as the open source committee. The civics guys aren't going to really help us when it comes to managing an open source repo, at least not too terribly much, maybe on a code of ethics, but not so much on what do they do in relation to the Git repositories. So I do think we need this committee to really help define what does a maintainer do versus a contributor versus a committer, and clearly define those scopes. Michael did a great job on the already existing policy document that we have. I think we just need to take it kind of another step further.
Solana?
So I do have some very defined things, Adam. It's just that, first of all, the maintainers really need to be created by the projects themselves, because they will have different rule sets and things of that nature. Though it is coming up a lot in regards to the product lifecycle process that we're talking about, especially if we want to do what Charles was talking about in regards to funding core maintainers and things of that nature, and what does that look like. But like some common things that they do is, one, they first write and maintain all the rules for contributing to the code base. So one of their first obligations is the contributing agreement, and creating that correctly and making sure that it's done in such a way so that, one, their code base is protected, and two, they have all those different processes in there, and three, that there is something in regards to onboarding if they do want additional contributors. Sometimes some teams don't, honestly. Some teams just want to be out there and they don't do that, and that's fine. I don't think that's the goals here, but you know, it might be. They do things, they always review incoming code. Sometimes they have more than 2 people review incoming code. They mentor contributors. They're the ones who actually do the merges. After they do the reviews, they have to take the lead on refactoring and modularization. So they have some architectural roles typically. They participate in the discussion lists. They have to be available. They have to, they should be doing regular announcements about the product. And they should watch for any opportunities to work with the community. So there are some things that are defined that I can give you like that. But at the same time, you want to be careful, because you do want to make sure that each of those groups has ownership. And that's the thing that I kind of keep stressing on all these different things, is you need to go to the people themselves and sit there and take in what they say to you, and then reflect it back out to them publicly, and then bring it back in again and do that over and over. And that's how you actually get community buy-in for all these things. And that's the thing that I see lacking the most at Intersect.
And just to build off that too, that's why we have the general definition, and then we have Michael's definition and what you have, Adam. I want to tie them all together to what we think is best practice, and then give this to the actual maintainers themselves to reflect on it. And then from that, we can also build out the contribution ladder. So there's at least a general take, if you're going to get involved, how you would eventually potentially get that role. So it's definitely an animal to tackle. And then from that, we can actually get contractual language to make sure that there's a paid interest behind it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was only meaning Salona in reference to somebody had said, well, here's our definition of a maintainer, combining something from Salona's book with ours. And it was just a very flowery kind of philosophical definition of a maintainer. Not that you didn't already have those suggestions, but those are fantastic. So yeah, thank you for the link. I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I know what you're talking about, Adam. And Michael, his parting gift was destroying that document too.
So there is a PDF that you can download there for free. So if you want to get that book and you can sit there and see some of those different structures, they're all there, Adam. If you want to go grab that, I was reading it out of the book, as you could tell. So it's on page 16.
Okay. The last thing too, as everyone was aware, I met Adam. We're having a debate as to who's more country. I still go with my Texas roots as the rule of thumb. But we were in Toulouse for the Builders Fest, and I got to interview 20, 30 different builders from around the consensus. Then building off the list Salona had provided me on OSPO services in the past, I'm hoping to define an open source office project service catalog that ties in with all the work that we're doing, so that if you end up coming here, this is how Intersect can actually support back to the community and individuals at large, and also give an ROI to some of the membership, which I think Intersect's working as a whole altogether. So I should have a draft of that towards near the end of this month, and give that out for general feedback. So that's it for our office function.
All right. Any comments, feedback, questions? Any of the working groups have it, something that they remembered late? Anything else to mention?
Nothing else?
If nothing else here, what we can do is we can go ahead and close out. I will update this here to the bi-weekly. So I guess what we'll do is we'll see everyone on the 18th, if I understand it. I'll double check that date. But we'll see everybody here in a couple of weeks. And again, also at intersectmbo.org. If there's something that you're not seeing here, if there's something that you think of in between, please send it there. That's the easiest way to get the eyes of both myself and Christian. And we can make sure with its level of importance that it gets on the agenda should it need, if need be. So feel free to access us there accordingly or individually if necessary, but that group email would be best.
And if you hate something in particular, please make sure it's related to text, not me, just for complaints.
All right. Well, we'll close it out for everyone. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great week.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Oops.